This is the Fantasy Roadshow.
Cheerio, everybody. It's week 7 in London again, baby. I hope you all had your fry up and your black pudding for breakfast. Oh, we got a little bit of a duff up going on right now as Jacksonville is up on the Patriots. All right, folks, welcome to week 7. That is the end of my British accent and impersonations. Welcome, everyone, to week 7. If you are here, please do us a favor. Like the video. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. It really helps out. It takes just a second to do so. I'm here to take your week 7 questions. Truck is off this morning, so it'll be a solo show. So just let your questions fly, and we will get into some injury news and notes. Porter, love the Jaguars playing right now. Yeah, this is a great game right now for Jacksonville to get back on track. That first drive by New England looked really impressive, looked really different with Drake May in there. Making, the first drive was just mostly all throws. We did see Antonio Gibson leave, did not return. But it's been a great first half for all of you, Tank Bigsby and Brian Thomas Jr. Owners who started them today. Brian Thomas Jr. is probably looking like in Dynasty the number 2 receiver maybe now behind Malik Neighbors. So he is looking incredible. Ryan, nice British accent. Thanks. I probably won't get very many of those, but it was my attempt to bring some of the flavor of week 7 morning London football to the show. So let's get into some news and notes, and then we'll take any questions I'll take any questions that come in. But looking first, big news and notes that we got this morning. It looks like Tua is on track to return to practice next week. Looking like he will probably be in line, maybe even to play in week 8. So the takeaway for that is you have probably now 1 hour and 57 minutes to get any buy low trade offers for Tyreek Hill. I would start with Tyreek. If you get him this morning in a trade, you happen to pull one off this late notice, I think he's going to actually have a bounce back game in his matchup today anyways. But B, it's just going to be, you're going to get in great value with anybody maybe that's not thinking that Tua might not be back next week or that he could get hurt again. So I would start with Tua. You could go really buy low if you want on Waddle. Probably wouldn't take as much to get for Waddle. Ryan, I saw that Brian Thomas Jr. also had a 2-point conversion. How many points might I get for that? You should be getting 2, Ryan. If your league is not set up for that anyway, shame on them. But a 2-point conversion catch in any league that I've played in has always been worth 2 points. So other news and notes, Aaron Jones, who has been dealing with the hamstring injury and has listed as questionable, is expected to play against the Lions. Not a great matchup today for him against the Lions. Lions, one of the top 5 defenses against the run and rushing yards allowed per game. Tough matchup. We may see a little bit more of Ty Chandler worked into that game with Aaron Jones listed dealing with that injury. Cooper Kupp, some of you maybe were hoping maybe he would be back today with some of the news with his ankle injury. He did get some practices in this week, was listed as questionable, but now as of this morning, Adam Schefter's reporting that he is doubtful, unlikely to play today in that matchup. So it probably looks like, even though it's a great matchup against the Raiders, you're going to probably have to wait one more week for Cooper Kupp to return. So Jordan Whittington will be starting and playing in his spot right now, but you'll probably have to wait one more week for him. So Let's see here. Danny Cousins. Thanks, Danny, for joining us. Need one in PPR. Tyreek or DK Metcalf. So I just talked about Tyreek. I like his matchup a lot today, but I think I'm going to go DK Metcalf against the Falcons still. It was a down week for DK last week, but San Francisco has done a really good job of shutting down number one wide receivers. They had shut down Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. the week before. Then they shut down DK. They do a good job of shutting down number ones. I think that Seattle Atlanta game could be a nice little high scoring game where we see a lot of throwing. So I think Tyreek probably at this point, when you've got Snoop Huntley playing quarterback again, probably the ceiling you're looking at for him is what he had before that bye week, which was, I think, 6 for 69. So maybe you get like a 12, 13 point PPR game, but that's probably the ceiling for him at this point. And probably with DK, you've got the ceiling more of like 20 points. So I would go ahead and go with DK. Some other news and notes we have. Let's see here. Juju Smith-Schuster, who had a late week injury with a hamstring injury, which is never a good sign. But Saturday they came out and said that he should be okay. And then this morning it was reported, Adam Schefter saying that Juju Smith-Schuster is expected to play. So it's not a great matchup at San Francisco. I just talked about how they shut down number one wide receivers. But if you're in a bind with bye weeks in a deep league, Juju Smith-Schuster will be playing today in the 3:00 slate. For the Colts, Michael Pittman and Josh Downs and Alec Pierce, all who were listed as questionable, will play in that matchup against Miami. Also back in play for them is Anthony Richardson at quarterback. So that takes down, in my mind, their fantasy value a little bit. So they're more questionable calls. I think Pittman's more of a wide receiver 3. Downs is probably more of a bench. Pierce definitely a bench. So unless you're in a bind, I'd probably leave Downs on the bench, just not knowing what that's going to look like with Anthony Richardson at quarterback. B. Cork, thanks, B. Cork, for joining this morning. Davante Adams, Cooper Kupp, A.J. Brown, and C-Deem. Who would you trade for an RB1 and who would you target? So if possible, I would try to hold on to A.J. Brown and CeeDee Lamb. I just think target volume, production-wise, quarterbacks that they have, and health-wise, I think the younger they are, those would be the guys I am going to hold on to. In an ideal world, you would have Davante Adams will play tonight in that Sunday night game against the Steelers. In an ideal world, Davante Adams would play tonight, have a good game, and you could probably trade him. If you're not able to trade Davante Adams or a Cooper Kupp, Davante Adams would be the guy I'd probably look to trade first. And so you could probably be looking for Davante Adams. I would shoot for, it might be tough, but I would shoot for a Kenneth Walker. And if you gave up Davante Adams and a lesser running back, that's probably a guy I would shoot for. I think Walker is in line for a great rest of the season now that he is getting more involved in the passing game, which he wasn't before. So Cooper Kupp, you're going to have to wait one more week before he gets back. His trade value is down low. If Walker is unattainable, I like a guy like Tony Pollard. I think Spears is out today. Pollard has looked better anyways. He's getting involved in the receiving game. I think he's just got a nice, safe, high floor in fantasy. But I would try to hold on to Brown and CD if all possible. If for some reason somebody wants A.J. Brown or CD, the only things I'm about giving up for them is a Kyren Williams, a Saquon Barkley, a Derrick Henry. Those are the running backs I'd probably be shooting for rest of the season. So thanks, B. Cork, for your question. Ryan, pick one to start in flex. Christian Watson, A-Chain from Miami, Jordan Mason, Chase Brown, or Aaron Jones. Okay, so I'm going to start at the start eliminating. Yeah, I worry. Yeah, injuries for all is a concern. So a couple things. Let me just talk about injuries and matchups for a couple of these guys. Aaron Jones, I briefly mentioned, he's going to play, but the Detroit Lions is a very tough run defense, one of the top 5 in the league. So if I'm factoring in injury and matchup, I'm taking Jones out of the equation right away. Same thing with Jordan Mason. That is a bad shoulder injury. So all that could take is one bad tackle, one guy landed on that shoulder on a tackle, and that could be the end of the game for him. So you could see, Jordan Mason take 2 carries and be done for the game. I'm nervous about that, even though they said he's going to play. I think they probably work in more Walker or Isaac Guerrero into that running game anyway. Second of all, with that matchup, the Chiefs are another sneaky, tough defense against the run. They're a top 5 rush defense to play against. So I don't like matchup and injuries on that one. Christian Watson, I don't like that it is such a crowded wide receiver room there. It's just hard to bank on a low target volume and big plays happening for him. So I think out of now it comes down to Achane or Chase Brown. For me, I love the matchup for Achane. He's got the Colts this week. That's a great matchup. Looking at here, Indianapolis. Yeah, so I just wanted to verify. Indianapolis gives up the second most rushing yards per game right now, over 155 rushing yards per game. So Chase Brown is playing at the Browns. That's a little bit tougher. They're about middle of the pack rush defense. So I'm going to go with Achane on this. Ryan, just sole fact, he's coming off an injury, but it's a concussion. It's not a soft tissue like a hamstring or a knee or a shoulder where he takes a tackle and a hit, and we could, you could lose him for the game. So it's a close one with Chase Brown, but I like Achane in this matchup. Thanks. I was leaning Achane, but worried about the crowded backfield. No, I think it's right. I think it's going to be mostly just him and Mostert, and I really think this Miami offense with the coach they have in McDaniel, that's that intelligent of offensive schemes. I really think they spent their bye week probably trying to figure out how to manipulate a better offense with what they have at quarterback right now. So I'd be fine with Achane. B. Cork, Amari Cooper or Deontay Johnson. Okay, so this was one of the news I was going to get to right now, so it's good. Deontay Johnson had missed some practices all weeks, was listed as questionable. I really think that was more veterans rest on missing practices than anything serious, but we did get confirmation this morning that Deontay Johnson is fine to play. So he's expected to play in that matchup. And then we got Amari Cooper, who will play, would make his debut with the Bills right now. But I'm going to go with this matchup. I'm going to go Deontay Johnson just for a couple of reasons. One, I don't think Amari Cooper is probably getting a full snap count in his first game in Buffalo. It's not like Devontae Adams going to the Jets where he knows the playbook. He knows all the schemes, all the calls, everything like that. It's a little bit foreign, a little bit different. And I like Deontay Johnson in the matchup. Washington has been better against the pass lately, the last couple of weeks, but they're still susceptible. And I'm still going to take the number one target in Deontay Johnson, playing in a game where they're probably trailing, against Washington, and with Jane Daniels putting up points. So for me, it's Deontay Johnson. Ryan, how legit is the Chargers run defense? With Bosa being out this week, thanks. James Conner is getting a touchdown. Listen, I think this is a tough Chargers defense. So Bosa or no Bosa, like Bosa has been out a lot this year, and they've been like one of the most consistent defenses, especially in fantasy, to have. I think this is a tough matchup for James Conner. Honestly, there's a couple of reasons I'm a little concerned is matchup versus Chargers defense. One. B is that we just saw last week it was kind of mysterious. It looked like he was dealing with some sort of ankle injury where he was having the ankle taped up. He only got 16 snaps in that game. We saw a lot more Trey Benson than we had in any other game this year. We didn't get much news on it this week, so maybe it's fine, but maybe we see more of Benson worked in if this is an issue. And so you factor in that matchup and this kind of mysterious ankle injury with Connor and he's kind of a bench for me if possible this week, given the matchup. Let me say this about the Chargers defense also, because I'm in a couple leagues, I'm streaming defense. If they're available on the waiver wire, go pick them up. It's not a great matchup against at Arizona. So that, they've been consistent, but why not? I'm looking at this Chargers defense is over the next 3 weeks. They're going to get the New Orleans Saints, who we just saw the Denver defense tear them up in New Orleans on Thursday night. After the Saints, they'll get the Browns and Deshaun Watson. That's always a win for your defense. And then they will get Titans. That means either Will Levis or Mason Rudolph at quarterback. So you can pick up this Chargers defense and not have to pick up and stream defenses for the next 3 weeks. That's a sneaky kind of defense to go ahead and pick up if they're sitting on the waiver wire this morning. I would go ahead and do it and chance it with the matchup at Arizona, just not having to then beat other people or spin fab next week to pick them up, given their next 3 matchups. Let me see, Ryan. Thanks. Just want to give kudos. Best on here. You don't only know your stuff, but explain without bias. Learn so much from you. Look forward to that. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it very much. We love coming on here, helping out people. So, also real quick, if anybody's on Twitter, follow me at smccormick_FF. I'm available all week. I'll respond to any and all questions you have on Twitter. If you've got any waiver wire questions of who to pick up, how much fab to spend, any of that stuff, I'll respond back Sunday mornings after we go off the air here. Any other questions leading to kick up, you can let me know. So just smccormick_FF. You can follow and have any other questions. Let's get back to some of the other news and notes. Brian Robinson for the Commanders. So he's been dealing with the knee injury the last couple of weeks. He missed last week. It was knee injury, but he practiced in full on Friday. And so we got news this morning. He is expected to play against the Panthers. That's a great matchup for Brian Robinson Jr. Carolina gives up the 3rd most rushing yards per game this season. So that's a smash matchup right now for Robinson. So start him with confidence this week. And really, he's a guy after missing last week, I would maybe try to make a low offer on, even if you could pull it off this morning. I like a couple things about him. He's clearly kind of established as the first down, second down guy. He'll be the goal line option. And I just think this Commanders offense with Jaden Daniels is going to be explosive all year, put points up, and, will provide opportunities for Robinson to score. Ryan followed on Twitter. There's no option to send a message. When I get off here, Ryan, I will follow you, and that'll probably open up that option. But you can always just tweet and at me and question, and I'll respond to that way. So either way you want to do it. But after this, I'll follow you, Ryan, when I get on there, and that should take care of that. Let's see. Other questions. We've got, I think this could be positive, honestly, out of Tennessee. Will Levis is not playing. He has got an AC sprain, grade 2 in his throwing shoulder. So what that means is Mason Rudolph is in right now for them this week. And probably, I think that they said that Levis could miss the next 3 weeks. So my main takeaway, I don't think you're bumping up DeAndre Hopkins very much or Calvin Ridley with Mason Rudolph, but he is a better, more consistent option of moving the ball and, more importantly, not turning the ball over. So what my takeaway from that is bumping up Tony Pollard's value even a little bit more in my eye. So I mentioned him to B Cork earlier as a trade target. I think this helps out Tony Pollard a lot. Tony Pollard is in a great spot this week. You might be wondering like, oh, I don't know. He's playing at Buffalo. Buffalo gives up the most fantasy points to running backs this year, especially through the air. They allow, quite a bit of running back production through the receiving. So I think this, especially with no Tyjae Spears playing right now, I think he is set up to have a great game this week. So start Pollard this week with confidence and target him in any sort of trade offers if you can still. Let's see here. Any other news and notes? Monday night game. We have this is kind of a surprise. Marvin Harrison Jr. cleared the concussion protocol late in the week, so he will play Monday night. Also playing is Zay Jones, Michael Wilson. Not as much factor in that. Michael Wilson, I'm not as excited about now that we know Harrison Jr. is back and playing, but he will be back. Harrison Jr. cleared the concussion protocol. We saw Malik Neighbors actually miss 2 weeks with it, so it was a little bit of a surprise, but concussions are just big question marks. You never know how each person's going to respond to them. Let's see here. Chad, one running back in PPR. We got Tony Pollard, or we've got Walker from Seattle. Okay, so I talked a little bit about Pollard in that matchup. Walker is, so a couple things with Walker we need to look at. So he is playing at Atlanta, so they have given up over 140 yards rushing a game. So a lot of leagues, like if you're playing in an ESPN league, they're going to show that like the little rating, like they'll show by Walker 8th toughest run defensive matchup. So just be careful when you're looking at that because they're not factoring in everything. So the matchup is not as hard if you dive in and look at it. When you see that Atlanta's giving up over 140 rushing yards a game to running backs. Now, what I think we have to watch for is Walker. He was added yesterday to the injury report, listed as questionable with illness. Now, we will know this when inactives come out here in the next 15 minutes. I usually don't worry about illnesses on an injury report, but I do remember last year, I think it was Bijan Robinson in that game at Tampa Bay had an illness or a headache pop up, and then he was ended up active, but only played like 5 snaps. So it's something to watch for. And just because it popped up so late, and because Tony Pollard has got that great matchup I talked about with Buffalo, who gives up either the first or second most fantasy points to running backs, I'm going to go with Pollard in this matchup based on those two factors. Ryan, Chubb gets a TD today. It's such a good comeback. Yeah, it is. If anybody didn't see I think it was in the Athletic, the story he wrote to the city of Cleveland. Go on Twitter, find it. It's a great It's a great article. It's hard to say what kind of workload Chubb's going to get in his first game back off of just one of the more horrific knee injuries we saw last year. I wouldn't be banking on a ton of rush volume. What does help? I mean, Jerome Ford is out this week. He's got Cincinnati. He's playing. So their defense has struggled at times this year. So I wouldn't want to start him at fantasy. But yes, Ryan, could I see a scenario where Cleveland gets in scoring position and it's not really Chubb that gets them down there, but they get under the 5 and they bring Chubb in for a touchdown? 100%. I could see that happening. It's just I would want to start him because I think this offense is so bad right now. I think Deshaun Watson is probably one of the first or second top 3 worst quarterbacks in the league right now, just off of he's not having pre-snap reads, progressions he doesn't go through. He just doesn't have a feel in the pocket. So I think scoring could be limited in that game. But yeah, I could see a scenario where after this long of a layoff, they bring him in if they could get near the goal line and give him the touchdown. So let me go through any other news and notes. Let's see here. We talked about Mason Rudolph already. Not impacting fantasy, but good, like Chubb, a good story to hear. Ricky Pearsall is off of the non-football injury list, and so that's always good to see. He may be active for today's game. TJ Hawkinson will not play this week. It was good to see him get off of the injury list, get some limited work in, but he is not supposed to be active to play. So you're going to have to wait a little bit more. But TJ Hawkinson is getting close. If for some reason he is sitting on your waiver wires, give in the landscape of how tight ends are this year, I would look to go pick him up for sure. That Minnesota offense is a great offense. Hawkinson was one of the most targeted tight ends down the stretch last year. So I would go pick him up if he's sitting there available. Got to head out. Thanks for everything. Look forward to catching you soon. All right, Ryan, good luck to you and your matchups this morning. Hopefully you're off to a good start with if you started Brian Thomas Jr. and Tank Bigsby. That's always a nice feeling to have a nice early start in the early London game in your fantasy matchups. Let's see here. Just going to check any other notes. The night game tonight, we've got, we talked a little bit about it. We've got Pittsburgh and the Jets. So the other big development with that game, we've got Russell Wilson kind of as a surprise taking over as the starter in Pittsburgh with Justin Fields taking the bench. So a lot of people are going to say, that's great fantasy value improvement for George Pickens. They're going to be throwing the ball more down the field. We'll see. I don't think it's that big of an improvement for him fantasy wise. I don't like the matchup this week for Pickens really at all anyways. I think he'll see a lot of Sauce Gardner on him in that matchup, which is not a good thing when he's got that coverage. So I don't love the matchup. We may see them push the ball down the field, but I don't know if this is a big improvement for the Steelers offense. I mean, their line was not great, struggled a lot at times. They kind of got pushed around by Dallas, which didn't have a great defense. The one thing Fields would at least bring is that escapability out of the pocket, running the ball. So I think this tonight is a pretty low-scoring game. You're probably looking like a 2017 matchup, so not a lot of huge fantasy production players going off in this game. So I don't think you'll see too much going on. So I think I'm going to double check here any last minute news and notes that if there's any that has come across. We've got, in the London game, just noticed Demario Douglas, questionable return with an illness. So we just talked about illness with Kenneth Walker. So I don't know. I don't know how you get ill during the middle of the game. But questionable return he is what the latest breaking news there. So I don't know. Maybe, like I said, that for the person who's asking about Walker and Pollard, that maybe gives you a little bit more slanted view to take Pollard in that matchup. Let's see. Some of the inactives are coming out here. Texans, nothing big, but no other big updates that we've got. Okay, so I'm going to leave it up here. If any other people have any other final questions, feel free to hop in. We've hit on all of the news and notes. So we'll give it a couple here. No other questions. I will let you guys get out of here. Follow me on Twitter for the next hour and a half. I'll be available. Try to take any questions you have. But since we don't have any other, let me see here. Look here. Where we go? B Cork. Will Dallas get it going after the bye week? Oh, B Cork. Why do you have to? I was having a nice week with no Dallas playing. And then you just had to bring them back up. I think really B Cork. Honestly, this is a 500 team, probably the rest of the season. So they're just so beat up on defense, and it's going to take a while to get some of those starters back. I don't see any improvement coming in the run game. They are not explosive in the run game, so there's nothing to fear there. So you're going to see there's just no respect given to it. So I think if you're a CeeDee Lamb owner or Dak Prescott owner, I think the only thing you hang your hat on to is last year They started off very slow. CeeDee Lamb started off very slow. And then out of the bye week, kudos to Mike McCarthy. He did come up with some new schemes, new things to get CeeDee Lamb more targets, getting more involved in different ways. So maybe we see a little bit more of that. But here's my caution, and maybe if you can get something really good for CeeDee Lamb, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Their schedule is not good coming out of the bye. I mean, they face the 49ers. I don't have the schedule off the top of my head, but they've got some other tough matchups. So they check out their schedule. It is not easy. I think they got Philadelphia, they got Atlanta. They've got some really tough matchup. Do you think Mike needs to go? If they don't make the playoffs, Mike's gone for sure. Yes. So if they were to make the playoffs, I'm not firing Mike McCarthy, because if he gets them to the playoffs with all of the injuries, all the Jerry Jones idiotic distractions he brings week to week, he has brought week to week this year, he is worthy of being re-upped. If they don't make the playoffs, I would cut loose with him. Final year of his contract anyway, so it doesn't matter. You don't have to pay him. So honestly, from my own standpoint, I've always been, my first shot would be go after Ben Johnson. You just made a huge investment in Dak Prescott, so let's invest in Dak Prescott. And part of that would be bringing one of the more creative offensive minds to your team to play call. And I think Ben Johnson is that person. Heck, give me a Ben Johnson as head coach and Robert Saleh as defensive coordinator, I'll take it. If for some reason Ben Johnson does not want to come to Dallas, he wants to stay in Detroit, I wouldn't have been saying this last year, but I would not be opposed to like a Mike Vrabel, just because I think this team needs a culture shift. They need some toughness added. They are, as many former Cowboys have said, they are very soft. So I wouldn't be opposed to that. B. Quark, sorry for the hard questions. I have a lot of CeeDee Lamb. It's been frustrating. I agree. If you can get a top tier running back for CeeDee, I would go for that. Saquon Barkley, Kyren Williams, Derrick Henry, any of those, I wouldn't be afraid to make that deal. Real quick before I sign off here, we did just get notifications. Kenneth Walker is active, despite being listed as questionable with the illness. So he is active right now. So in case you're wondering, you can take that concern out of there. So, all right, everybody, thanks for joining me this morning. Like I said, hit me up on Twitter if you've got any other follow-up questions in play coming up. @SMcCormick_FF. If you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe if you haven't, and most importantly, buckle up.